Those of you that follow this channel by now know that I am a fan of Kiss, and I say that unashamedly. I loved them when I was a little kid, like a lot of people did. And to this day, you know, I still do like a lot of the music, but when you're a Kiss fan, especially when it's early on, you just kind of get fascinated by the whole thing. The people, the pageantry, the history, the names, all of it, you know. You get into that stuff. And so, of course, bought this book, I don't know, long time ago. And I remember when I read this book, I loved this book, you know, all the stuff you learn about, all the stuff that was going on behind the scenes when you're a little kid and you have no idea all these things that are happening. And then you hear all the backstory. It's really, if you're a Kiss fan, even if you're not, you might find this book interesting, but that's not the point. So all of us knew, and I remember knowing this when I was a kid, just because you couldn't help it, that Gene Simmons was in a relationship with Cher. And the reason you couldn't help but know it is because you'd be at the store, even as a little kid. I remember seeing on People magazine, there's Cher, I think it was People. There's Cher on the cover of People magazine, and then there's a picture of Gene Simmons' face. And of course, I'm a Kiss fan, and you know, there's Gene Simmons, right? And then you find out that Gene Simmons is in a relationship with Sonny and Cher. What? You know, and as a little kid, because Sonny and Cher, they had their TV show and everybody knew who Sonny and Cher was, right? They were just kind of pop culture icons, not just musicians, but everybody knew Sonny and Cher. And there's Gene Simmons, the Kiss Gene, what? You know, it didn't make any sense. So anyway, so you read this book and he explains that relationship, talks about the whole thing. But then something else, as he's wrapping up that relationship, here I am reading this book, and it's so interesting because you just don't, as a kid, and somehow you didn't know this stuff, and somehow, you know, learning this is later on in life, you go, whoa, you got to be kidding me. So and other Kiss fans watching this will know about this, but then I've got something so cool to show you today about this. Okay, so I'm reading this book, and I'm on page 168. It's Christmas time. I had to return to New York from California to audition new drummers to replace Peter. Of course, Peter was gone. They booted him out of the band, and now, of course, Eric Carr is going to come in at this point. And I was talking to Cher because we were still close, and she asked me to get her a Christmas present. And I don't know what to buy you for a Christmas present. I said, go and talk to my friend Diana. So Cher tells him to go and talk to Diana. She'll know what I like. We shop at the same places. This was Diana Ross, who had begun her career with the Supremes. So I go, okay. So now Cher introduces Gene Simmons to how did Diana Ross get in my Gene Simmons book? Then you read on. When I came to New York, I tracked down Diana on the phone. She invited me over to her place. He tells his whole story about them spending time together. Diana was a strong woman. There wasn't any real pressure on me to be the centerpiece of her life. I admired how she conducted her personal life. Goes on and on. Being with Diana was a combination of joys. That is, I'd like to think, everyone's hope that a relationship can exist on more than sexual energy. And in the back of my mind, perhaps to justify my fear of commitment, was the notion that men don't seem to go through their lives agonizing over when it's time to have children. So he goes on this discussion that he ends up having this romantic relationship with Diana Ross. So now maybe other people watching this knew about. I didn't know about this until I read this book. I'm thinking, I mean, he had this extensive, long-term, you know, for Rockstar relationship with Diana Ross. So anyway, as I'm doing research for this show that I do here on this channel, I'm digging through Gene Simmons stuff just because I'm interested in it. And I come across an article where Diana Ross actually talks about Gene Simmons. And if you're into this stuff, you will really, really enjoy this little thing that I have here for you today. Now, it's a longer article, and I'm not going to read the whole article, although the whole article is very interesting from a pop culture standpoint. I'm just going to read you. She talks about Gene Simmons kind of a lot in this article, and I'm going to share with you these portions because I think, again, if you're into this stuff, you'll really enjoy this. This is from the Waterloo Region Record, Wednesday, March 4th, 1981. And this article, variations of it, I think were printed in various newspapers, but this is the one that kind of focused in on at least the parts that I wanted to bring up. Okay, so it's called Diana's Dilemma. America's sexiest single can't find a man to marry. This is March 4th, 1981. And to put this in context, March 4th, 1981, guess what Gene Simmons was about to start doing or was starting to do at that point? You guessed it, recording The Elder. Okay, Hollywood, sexy, single, and rich, adored by millions, Diana Ross is a kind of walking national treasure, the girl who has everything. But today, she is singing the blues. She can't find a man to marry. In 4 years of divorce from manager Roger Silverstein, she has seen brisk social action. Dates with singer Michael Jackson, director Sidney Lumet, actor Ryan O'Neal, proprietor Steve Rubel, Motown manager Shelley Berger, even a clandestine visit to a porn flick with a fashionable haberdasher Danny Zarum. However, there's been nothing serious enough to prompt marriage. It would be nice to have somebody to share my life, says Diana. Somebody who is mine. I really don't like transit affairs. Can't stand that. I want a family relationship, but a lot of men get really scared of that. Think back to what I just read in the book just a second ago that Gene said. They're afraid they're getting tied up, trapped. Diane's steady date and lover for the past year has been Gene Simmons of the rock group Kiss. She took up with him after being introduced by Cher. Soon after, Cher gave him up, but there are problems. For one thing, Simmons won't go out in public without a mask, and of course, he appears on stage only with full face makeup, usually with his tongue extended. Complains Diana. When I went to the Golden Globes, I wanted Gene to come with me, but he couldn't go because it's a big deal about his face and everything. Keeping covered started as a gimmick for Simmons, but now, according to Diana, it has grown into much more. His ego has nothing to do with showing his face. He wanted very much to go with me to the American Music Awards and thought of sitting in the back, but we knew there would be problems. So again, that left me without a date. So I took Steve Binder, I'm not sure how you say it, a television producer. Sometimes Michael Jackson and I end up being dates. She sighs, stretching on the sofa like a cat, her slender limbs sheathed in a satin jumpsuit. Quote, I do know that I want to marry again. This freedom is so painful. I do have Gene for what it is, nothing more. Gene and I are not even thinking about marriage. At 35, Diana remains slender, bristling with energy, breaking frequently into laughter, her grin wide, her eyes vast. Last night, as she talks now, she had performed for 20,000 people, taping a television special that aired on CBS March 2nd. The multitude showered her with love as she charmed them with song, coaxing even Muhammad Ali and Larry Hagman to sing with her. Ali sings like he talks, and Larry, he sounds terrific, like Dean Martin or somebody. Okay, so I'm gonna move to another part of the article, because then the article goes on with woe is me, I'm single, here's all the wonderful life I live, I have so many awesome things, but I want to be married. And then, okay, here we go. Oh my gosh. This is so much fun. Again, because as I just read here a second ago in the book, Gene talks about the fact that he does not want a committed relationship. When you go back to that part that I was reading a second ago, let's see here. In the back of my mind, perhaps to justify my fear of commitment, was the notion that men don't seem to follow through with their lives, agonizing over when it's time to have children. We don't have a biological clock. If we have any kind of clock, it probably goes off within a day or two if we don't have some kind of companionship. Okay. Being in KISS afforded me the opportunity of an inexhaustible supply of beautiful girls who simply wanted to be with me, perhaps only because I was in KISS. And the only thing they wanted was what I wanted too. Society rules don't apply. So anyway, he notoriously, and he talks about it in this book, notoriously did not want a committed relationship. And he's with a woman who actively wants a committed relationship. And that's what makes this so dang funny now, hearing it from Diana, from her point of view. Okay. I'm learning to date again, but it's really kind of hard. One thing she has discovered is the fragile nature of men's egos. They're so afraid to get turned down. Now, if I'm interested and he doesn't make the first move, I will. Another time, a friend wanted her to go out with an attorney, but Diana refused until she first had a chance to, quote, check him out. So a meeting was arranged, which he attended ostensibly as a participant, recalls Diana. But that day, I looked like hell, with torn jeans, hair all a mess. He looked just great, tall, handsome. After he left, I told our mutual friend, this guy's kind of cute. He passed the test. And my friend said, yeah, but I don't think you did. So about a year ago, Diana was introduced to Gene Simmons by Cher after the two had split. At the time, Cher and Diana were so close, they called each other sisters. She denies reports the romantic, quote, takeover put a strain on the relationship. Quote, it has changed my relationship with Cher, but for the better. I call her up and tell her when I think Gene is being ridiculous, unquote. At the same time, Gene keeps a close association with Cher, still acting at times in a father role for her two children, son Elijah Blue by rock singer Greg Allman, and her daughter Chastity by Sonny Bono. This support is especially important for Elijah as he rarely sees his father. They still do things together like father and son, says Diana. Gene's relationship with Cher and her children is such that if there are problems, he's there. I'm close the same way with Bob. In fact, on Diana's last visit to Las Vegas, they were all in town together. Gene Simmons, Diana, Bob, and his wife, Diana's daughters. Frequently, they travel together along with Susan's mother and Diana's mother, who asked Bob the other day, why don't you and Diana get back together? Laughs Diana, for a moment, she forgot this man is now married to her daughter. It's so wonderful that we're all so wrapped up together. This sounds, by the way, all this stuff sounds so crazy to me. Yet the closeness stops at a certain point. Quote, there's no fooling around, says Diana. We have an agreement, Gene and I. I'm not fooling around. He's not fooling around. Now, if that was to change, we'd talk. Now, Gene, he inspires me. He knows music. He also reminds me that I'm sexy and I'm cute. Sometimes I'll run out of the house and he'll remind me to put on a little lipstick to remember me. Having experienced such qualities in such men, Diana realizes her chances are slim of finding one man with them all. I may just go out with a kid, she laughs. Know any 19-year-olds? But she does know what she wants. I guess I'm seeking in a man the same relationship I had with my father. He was always strong, sure, sensitive. The man I marry would have to be in the business because nobody else could understand it. Anyway, I thought you'd find that, especially if you're a Kiss fan and especially if you have read this and know about this stuff, just that little glimpse of Diana Ross, her kind of view of their relationship with Gene and the funniness of it, how here in a headline of a newspaper, Diana Ross actively wants to be married, to have a family, a kind of a, quote, seemingly normal relationship, and she's in a relationship with a guy who actively openly does not want that. Anyway, it's just, it's comical and kind of fun and kind of interesting again if you're interested in this kind of stuff. And hey, please follow the channel if you're not already. Please follow the channel, like the video. And if you were as surprised as I was when you read this, I'd love to hear your thoughts about it, your input on what it's like to learn about this stuff later in life, because there were so many things going on. It's interesting looking back at being a Kiss fan as a kid, because these guys were, well, kind of as Gene puts it in there, I mean, these guys were living the rock star life in every possible way you could. And the lyrics of their songs reflected it. And here we were, I was 8, 9 years old listening to this stuff. I had no idea what they were singing about, but they could not have been more blatant and obvious about the what they were singing about. It was almost comical when you listen to some of those songs, especially on like Rock and Roll Over, even Love Gun. I mean, come on, right? And yet we're kids, Love Gun, you know, and you don't realize what's really going on there because you're a dumb kid. And it's so fascinating now because these were adults playing rock and roll music, making millions of dollars off of us kids and whatever. And to go back now and hear the actual stories, you know, from him, and then find these old newspaper articles, this one back in 1981, when at this point Kiss was on the way out. Truly. I mean, Unmasked was out, which was a flop, although a lot of people loved the album. I've got it. I don't know that I've ever even listened to it more than once, but it didn't go anywhere. And then now they're about to put out the album that they will, that for in some ways will be up there with Phantom of the Park as far as why in the world did we do that? They were trying to when they were recording The Elder, just as a side note, they were hoping to recreate Destroyer in some ways, because they brought Bob Ezrin back in thinking Destroyer put us on the map before. We're losing it. Maybe if we bring Bob Ezrin in, we can get the magic back. But of course, they were all going their different ways. Bob was a mess. The band was a mess. Everything was falling apart, and so The Elder ended up being kind of a mess. And then you throw this in the middle of it, that Gene Simmons is sidetracked with all this other stuff in his life. He's about to start pursuing a career as an actor, and we're going to do a video about that soon, an interesting article I found about that. But anyway, all the chaos. And again, as a Kiss fan, it's just fun and interesting finding and learning all this stuff. So anyway, again, follow the channel if you haven't already. And with that, have yourself a fantastic day.